here we are back for episode 6. This episode we're going to get into cleaning up the firewall, the fender wells, basically getting the home of the engine in a condition that is suitable for a brand new engine, instead of it being just, you know, a ratty, rusty mess and the engine looking brand new, sitting in a ratty, rusty mess. You're going to see some sheet metal work or framework. It's basically a master class in welding. If a master class in welding were taught by somebody that's got like 30 hours of experience total welding in their life, maybe more, but not a lot. But there's definitely some frame repair work in here. Making some pretty big leaps, because the thing we got to get to is that engine bay has to be ready for an engine, and that's the main goal here. There's definitely some frame rust, none of it big enough to constitute replacing a whole frame rail, but enough that it has to be done. It is a long video, but it covers a lot of work, so that's the big thing. Is it's gonna move us along pretty good in the whole process, and as far as getting y'all caught up to where I'm at. Hope you enjoy it. It is definitely quite a bit of work, and well, we'll go from here. All right, do it again.
Man, y'all there's fire coming out underneath that stuff.
This feller. Now, really, this harness is not in a great position. About half of what's started up. Starter wire. Brake pressure switch. Really, if there was going to be a full restoration done on this car, it should go and get sandblasted. You know, all that fancy stuff. I'm not doing that, so as I've said before, I'm just fixing it to sell it, get it running again. I'm not going to put a fresh motor in here when it looks like total garbage. Well, my phone rang, and I did some, I answered the phone, and then I did some more grinding until I used up the last of my final battery. Might need more batteries. I do have an electric powered grinder too, but it does not fit the same grinding disc, so I can't switch over to it. It's like, I don't know, the size, that grinder there is a 7/8. And the other one's whatever is the next size down from that. And I guess I'll leave this over here. Anyway, I did get quite a way done. Let me pull out what used to be a wiring harness holder.
really I've got about as much as I think I can get it with that thing. So I may have to switch tools. I had a die grinder I could use with those grinding pads. Alright, so I did get everything kind of taken apart over here so I can sand the firewall. Any painting I do is going to stop pretty much up here. Probably going to take care of that giant sag in the paint that runs like the whole width of the hood. I'm not sure how someone can paint that bad, but it's a sag in paint that goes all the way across. So I guess I'll probably sand it flush. But I need to kind of move stuff out of the way, clean off this black stuff. Big deal was over here in this corner. The electronic control module had melted all the dielectric compound out of the back of it, and it had run down the inner fender well. Same had happened right here. That's the e-brake cable, and the voltage regulator had melted at some point, and all of that ran out of it. Oh no, it's still soft and gooey, so I don't know what the stuff was, but once it melted, it never turned hard again. Probably do some scraping up here and make that all one color. You know, I'm sure the factory had some kind of sealant stuff they blobbed up there where the evaporate or the heater core is. But really I want to get it looking more like this fender well pretty much all throughout here, because I can't put the engine and transmissions in there in good conscience with it looking like garbage. But I'm going to have to cut some sheet metal, as you can see it's kind of these rust bulges here, so I'm going to cut this little section out from here forward, weld a new piece in, and probably just up above this bend. Probably not the whole bend, but you know, at least there to, and then come up around that hole, and then I may come in and cut this guy out and put something there. And then I haven't decided, you can kind of, this looks like rust has built up between it and pushed the metal up, so I may delve into that as well. So basically looks like I'm going to come from I may take this whole spot weld and then go all the way up to the end here, but I'll kind of decide that as I go. Probably need to do some kind of tacking or something here. Looks like sheet metal just kind of broke at that spot weld, but just don't want to put paint over all of it and make it look like I didn't try and fix anything, because it looks pretty rough, pretty ratted out. So I will come in and time lapse all that.
It's everything you talk about. Cocaine and whiskey and all the risky behavior you can't go without. It's frenetic, psycho-energetic, passed out on your feet, but you act like you don't even mind. I'm always looking for a good opportunity to lose my mind.
Alright, so I made a little patch panel. I got a clear room to get my welder over here, but it's pretty close. It needs to be shaped a little bit as it's plugged in there, and then I still have to make the patch panel for this down here.
Why don't you maybe take the money? You act like you can't live without it. You go solo, rockin' till you roll up, going till you got no more. You act like you don't even know. I'm always looking for a good opportunity.
Alright, so I didn't do a step-by-step on this, primarily because I was grinding and cutting and welding, and I don't really see the point in showing y'all all of that, because nobody should watch me do that for how to. But just getting the fender well there. This is rust reformer, and then there'll be a couple coats of primer and then paint. But of course, before we get to that point, gotta get the firewall as well. So next step is firewall. All of this will have to be done. I'm probably going to sand this and do a coat of all of it at once. But all of this is just got to be done before the engine goes back in it. And once the engine goes in, you can't really paint the firewall or the fender wells without painting the engine. So from here, it's going to be getting the firewall ready to sand and paint. And again, this is not some restoration. This is just making it tolerable, driver quality type stuff. You know, you can still see the pitting. Of course, I took this all down to sheet metal, because you can kind of see the spotty rust on the firewall. This entire fender well was like that. The battery mounts right here, so you can kind of see what your source of all this corrosion is. And so you can see the little pitting. I'm not trying to cover it up. I'm going to put a couple layers of primer on it. There's not a whole lot to hide here. It's just making it livable. And then the rust reformer is to try and keep it from getting any worse. As I said, I did take it down to metal. I did go ahead and patch this little hole here. Of course, it's not perfect, but it's not terrible. That's the back side of it, and it's the back side of that repair. All this undercoat here is from the 70s. This black. So what I did was clean all of this and resprayed the white. Hand washed all the undercoat as best I could and scrubbed with like a wire bristle brush to try and get all the dirt out of it, and then came over it with a semi-gloss black just to make it look like it would have originally. And then that ran down into here, so came back in, just rubberized undercoating here, kind of tie it all together. I am not going to go through and scrape all of this old 1970s undercoating off. So if somebody wants to, they certainly can, but it'll be after they buy it, because I'm not doing it. And then all the same, this side I did have to patch, so that'll be included in some of the video for this area. It looks a lot better than the rest of it, but hopefully we'll get it all looking about the same is the goal. So. And from there, it's just more works, and I'm glad to kind of be done with the welder for now. Most of that was done with my MIG. I did hook up my TIG. That is a different animal, and I decided I should probably stick with the MIG for now instead of trying to learn on some really crap quality sheet metal that wasn't thick to begin with, and then you've got decades of rust and stuff. I was not doing well with it. And it may not be the sheet metal. It's probably a combination of the sheet metal and the operator. I did kind of figure out some later, working away on something other than the car, and was able to actually get some metal down. But for now, it'll be MIG, especially for this stuff here. And then I'll continue when I get all this cleaned up. So firewall has got its coat of rust reformer on it. I did not video the sanding. There's a bunch of particles of sanding down there and a bunch of sandpaper. I did come in gloss black, or low gloss black, the wiper motor and blower motor. Of course, I don't even know if they work, but when I go to paint it white, I will tape off the whole thing, and I'll tape off the blower motor. That way it'll be black and the firewall will be white. I do see why a lot of people paint Chrysler firewalls black, because firewalls and fender wells, because it would just be a lot easier than painting it body color. So we'll go through, put in a few layers of primer, a couple coats. I don't know if you can even see them down here. These runs, some of these runs are just the thinness of that rust reformer, but some of them are also the sags or runs in the factory paint, which they clearly did not take a lot of time in. I noticed that when I was working on this one. This one I didn't pay attention too much because I had to take it down to bare metal. But once these are primered, then the whole thing is going to get a coat of color all at the same time. So this will get sanded down, and because I'm going to try and get rid of some sand scratches that are still showing in it from where I had to repair it for rust up here. But progress nonetheless, and I'll decide what I'm going to do up there. I could always finish this, then tape that off and come across there and just take that sag in the paint off. That thing goes all the way across, so whenever it was painted they didn't worry about the seam or the because the hood sits right there. I don't know, they just let the paint run right down in there. It looks pretty trashy, but also you can tell the hood has hit the cowl a bunch of times. Looks like the hood, when it was taken off, got dropped into the cowl, and then it's the same way over here. For now, the goal is getting the firewall done so I can put the K-member back in, put the front suspension back under it, and put the motor in the car. If I had the ability, I could put the engine on the K-member, waiting patiently, and then lift the car up and drop it down on the K-member, but I have no desire to try and do that. So Here we go.
You coming over, you see me, I don't owe you anything. You're not getting what you want, I don't care, don't need to please anyone. I'm not your princess, baby, in a nice dress, don't tell me how to feel. I'm not your princess, baby, in a nice dress, don't tell me how to deal. And all I hear is blah, blah, blah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All I hear is wah, wah, wah. You can't handle bad girls, don't try to hide. Don't nod your head, know what you want.
Alright, so in an effort to get this cleaned up like the other side, and this filter, or this fender is the actual one that's going to have to be replaced. Because it was folded in where it was impacting with the door or interfering with the door, and this fender has been replaced before. The other side is the factory fender, but this one is in way worse shape. Clearly it's had some body work done on it too, some bondos. I've got another fender, but this is actually supposed to run all the way down to here. It's just in bad shape. So this is also the side I have to do some patching of the frame. I got to come in here and cut this out and patch it. That's fine. I mean, I've got the fender off, so that'll be coming up too. But this definitely has to go. Probably, I don't know if I'll do it in one big patch like that, or I'll do, yeah, probably one big patch. And it's, you can see it's 2 layers, but it's actually only 2 layers at the top. I'll come in and I'll do, at least gonna have to cut out here down to here. Man, maybe some up here. This is the worst part on the car. The rest of the frame underneath the car looks pretty good. This part looks, like I say, it's the worst part on the car. This is the same fender. This is the fender well I patched to start with. But this will be the next project after I get done with these inner fender wells and all this. But as I've said before, goal here is to get the motor back in the car. I think I probably ought to go. Been trying to debate whether to put the K-member in and then cut this out, because then the K-member would give it a place to tie from side to side. Of course, not put the weight on the car. With the K-member in, this is weight bearing. So if I put the K-member in and give me some side to side to stop movement, maybe one patch. Anyway, anyways, I'll come in and clean this up and figure out what I'm going to do. But I did want to get the fender off so I can clean all this out, put some paint up here to put it into any more further rusting of this inner fender well, which is the same thing I did on the other side. And I also had to take the fender off to replace it anyway, so no big loss there in time. But before I got, because I want to shoot all this in color at one time, so I'm going to get this rust treated and then primer and then once I have everything else in primer, I'll sand this down and I'll shoot a layer of color on everything all at once. And then I definitely got to tend to this. But, fender's kind of a pain in the butt, but mainly that bolt right up there that sticks down, you know, drops in right here. Well, there's a fender shim. It's a nice looking one too, let me tell you. But just I don't get the idea of the design, but whatever. That is one fine looking fender shim. I'm sure I will have to come in here and pull out all this seam sealer. That's what I did on the other side. This fender had to come off because that hinge was bad, so come in, clean this up, or clean that side up to make it look like this one. Alright, so this will be the last step before color goes back on the firewall and the core support. Did find some more rust where the fender mounts here and here. I'm not really gonna fix it. It's there. You can see some there. It's not so much structural, so I'm not super worried about it. But firewall and radiator core support are all primed, and these edges that were already painted are kind of blended in, so it's ready to all be shot in color at one time. Sanded the gloss down off of here so that when I do shoot paint on it, it should stick to it. And final step will be just wiping it down again before paint, because I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff floating around in the air out here. But then shoot paint and be done.
Okay, so that's pretty much the engine bay being done. It just looks a lot better. Huge progress that you can visibly see, which is always cool when you're working on something that is a project this large and details all of the car pretty much. So just kind of making that headway and sharing with you kind of as I do it what my plan is. Not super detailed and a little by the seat of my pants, but it is, kind of in sequence. But we'll continue from here and you'll see my real welding skills.
So I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and handle this issue before I go any further on anything else. There is virtually no weight on the front of this car right now. When I do lift up on it, it pops up off the jack stands. If I were to throw much else in the back of this car, I'm pretty sure it would become even lighter. But what that tells me is I don't have much weight sitting on this right now. K-member bolts in here, and then your lower control arm attaches to the back of that K-member. So once K-member's in and it's on, sitting under its own weight, it's definitely going to be putting some stress on this part of the frame. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and cut this from here to here, because as you can see, still holes here. Pretty pitted, and there's nowhere else on this car that the frame looks like this. It's just kind of oddball. But you can see the metal here is just garbage. See how it's not actually that thick, it's only this thick, but the rust has it all puffed up. So what I'm going to do is try and cut through this layer here and then see if I can find the spot welds, or it may just break off. Then I'll clean up the layer of metal that's under it, and as you can see, there's 3 pieces of metal going on here. But I'm going to cut that section out, and I am leaving the bend in place down here. Just bend is where you're going to pick up some of your strength. But it's just got to be done. So I'd rather do it now than put weight back on it and have it, just not be good. So that's where I'll get started, and I do have sheet metal over there for this. And then maybe I should put that hole in there. I don't know. Not sure what it does, but yeah, make it look more unfixed. But I think I'll put it on time lapse and just kind of go from there. So just getting in here and cutting, you can see that there's a brace piece inside there. Looks like it's probably spot welded somewhere in here as well. And then on the other side of that, this all still needs to come out as well. The really bad part with all this pitting and stuff is I cannot see where the spot welds are at on any of it. So I can't just drill the spot welds and then try and get that plate off or that piece off. Here it's the same way. Maybe these pits, these rust pits, line up with some spot welds like here. I don't know. But that definitely makes it difficult because I just can't see the spot welds, so I know where to go in with my spot weld cutting tool and drill that spot weld out. But I'm gonna start maybe drilling, and hopefully I hit some of the spot weld. But there's definitely some spot weld here somewhere. I'm just not sure where. Looks like one right there. Oh. But I'm gonna keep going at it, and then I'll see. Oh, also when I cut this piece out, it looks like that's like a toe attachment point or something, so they braced up that metal. You see it's got dual layers back there. So I'll have to come in with another piece. I'll dual layer it here. I'll drill the holes and then weld it together and then put the patch in. But you can just see how tore up this metal was. That's that same way right there. It's pretty bad. But I'll put it back on time lapse. Alright, so just doing my best to, as I could, get these spot welds identified. I hit on some, I didn't on others. You can see I got one there, and then I missed that one just a little bit, which made it a bit of a pain. Some of these, the spot weld wasn't so great, so it just kind of peeled the metal off. Just peeled around that one. This bar I actually hit a little bit with the grinder when I was cutting. This is actually your threads for the bumper, but it'll be fine. I'll spot weld back to it here. I'll straighten this little piece of inner frame out, and then spot weld back to it. But I'm going to grind down all this stuff, get this metal good and clean, and then I will get a template for what I'm going to put in here. I'll probably put some rust treatment in here. Kind of hope to slow this down or stop it. But got the big chunks of rusted frame out. I mean, you can see it. You know, it's just Swiss cheese. And then I'm going to make a panel and come in here, and I will stitch it. I could try and TIG it, but my TIGging ability is pretty substandard, so I'll probably stitch it with a TIG, although this is some decent size metal. But that was the goal, was to get this piece cut out. I need to get see if I can get a good patch put in here, and then, like I said, I chose to go ahead and do this now instead of after the motor's back in, because I don't want to put weight on this any more than I have to, and hopefully we'll just get a good weld in here. I'll come back, I'll double up on that section there. I'll put a second plate on the back side of it, and then I'm going to come in and, you know, vacuum out what's left in here, but also spray some rust inhibitor in here. And then I'll make a new piece, and new piece, as you can see, runs all the way up, or it used to run all the way up here. So basically right now you got a C-channel frame in this section, whereas you know, before I cut that piece out, it was actually a box piece of unibody frame. So I mean, you still got some structure here. The metal, other than this side, actually looked pretty decent. But it obviously needed to be repaired. And like I say, I'll come in and grind this stuff away so that I can get in there and have a good clean surface. And then get some rust inhibitor up in here so I can put a stop to any of that that's still going. Alright, so came in, ground down all these little flashes of metal, and then I sprayed rust reformer in here, but pretty much have it ready for patch. You can still see some pitting inside there, but the idea is to knock that all down with a grinder and get the active rust out of there and get rust reformer on there to stop what I can. Obviously there's not much I can do, you know, beyond there or that way, but what I can reach, I did what I could. Then I have it marked here so I can see, you know, kind of what that understructure is, so that I can come and put my spot welds in. I have each one of these spot welds marked, and then that's where the patch will stop, because that's where the original stopped, and then it comes up here. Just, it's kind of an odd deal, just right underneath that, and then it's going to weld in here, and then I'll have a, this is what holds your bumper bracket threads, so I'll have a spot weld there, and then that just shows me where it's at. But that's pretty much the rest of the story until I get, I'll when I trace this out, I'll document that so that I can, you know, show making the patch. Then I'll make the patch, and then I'll probably stitch weld this in with the MIG, because I don't have any confidence whatsoever in my ability to TIG that in. Just don't. But that'll be the next step. Will be making a template, and then you know, getting it sized appropriately and then putting it in. And I may, you know, I don't know, I may tack it in place first and then come in and put in my spot welds, or I don't know, I'll just have to figure it out. But that's step one of this little project. This car is the gift that keeps on giving. So, alright, so I'm just getting a template for this patch panel, basically. And all I'm trying to do here is get a little tape, just something to hold it. It doesn't have to hold it really well, it just has to be able to position it or keep it in a position so that I can just get it marked out the way I want it. And it's just a regular old sheet of paper from a printer. Alright, so up here you had this weird kind of layering deal, like this layer that I took off actually stops here because you've got a third layer that comes together right there. And then just gonna mark against the metal. I can't tell if that's at all visible, but you can see my creases here. I think I'll come in with a marking device of some kind and see if I can get a little more definitive set of marks. There we go. So that's kind of the final template. And as you can see, it matches up. The only place it doesn't match up is the metal actually doesn't overlay this whole little section. It may be the same on the other side, so I can explain what I'm saying. But yeah, you've got, see this kind of, there's some, I don't know how you would really describe that. There's just a cutout piece. This one actually has some undercoating in it too, but so I'm just trying to duplicate that. And then on this side you can really see these spot welds really well. On the other side you couldn't tell that this that there were spot welds here at all because that metal was in such bad shape. So I will get that transcribed, and of course, you know, I'll probably have to trim the piece to fit it, but also what I'll do is I'll come in and with a set of marking tools and get a pretty good center on each of these so I can get those holes. And then I still got this piece of sheet metal from here that I'm going to use to approximate where that that hole is with that plate on the back. As you can see on the other side, those spot welds showed up a lot better than this. This is just in such bad shape that you couldn't tell what was going on. That's why it was so hard to identify the spot welds on the top as well. Well, pretty much all of it was just in bad shape. So next step would be getting that template moved over to metal and then cutting that out. Alright, so I went through, I kind of marked my spot welds. Some of them are going to line up pretty good, and others, like those two, they're not great, but that was pretty decent. You can see that one there is pretty close, but the panel itself, the patch, actually fits pretty good. It's actually holding itself in there right now, but unfortunately I need to take it out so I can come and run a grinder on all this material I need to weld so that I have a good clean surface before I start welding, and but I will do that and then continue. Alright, so I came in, these are plug welds where the spot welds used to be. These plug welds are actually holding that. There's that steel is double layered right there for, I don't know, just because that's the way it was from the factory. So I put it back as best I could do, and then I have some more plug welds to do here, but those aren't quite, I haven't done them yet. And then I'm going to see if I can maybe get this to come out a little more even or level. I'm not quite sure. See if maybe I can get something to pry in there, maybe pry here, push it out. If not, it'll go just like it is. But for the most part, it all fits pretty good. And then I need to just start stitching this back together. This metal may be thick enough I can start to put some beads. I don't know, but that's the next part of this whole process. Weldinator.
Been round the block a time or two, crossing boys off my list. You didn't get down on your knees, you were different than all the rest. Now you are my number one, ain't no others can compare. You are my number one, you give me love that is so rare. Other guys were coming around with flowers and perfume. Your blue eyes, they blew me away, and I was caught in your typhoon. Now you are my number one, ain't no others can compare. You are my number one, you give me love that is so rare. Other guys were coming around with flowers and perfume. Your blue eyes, they blew me away, and I was caught in your typhoon. Now you are my number one.
So the welder started being crazy, doing weird stuff, and that might be why. It's got no wire left in it. So, and I don't have any wire left laying around. So I guess I'll go get some wire. Other than that, it's going as expected. My welding skills are subpar, and the welds kind of tend to reflect that. But other than that, it's fine. Go get some welding wire and continue. Alright, so I went and got some more welding wire. I did go down a size. I had 030 in it, and since I've been working on this thinner sheet metal, I think I went down to 025. Hopefully it won't burn through as much or as often. But suppose we'll see. It's not good. I'm sitting on my gloves. No sense in getting a burning myself when I got my gloves sitting right under my butt cheek. Sure wish I wouldn't have done that. Now that wasn't originally welded, that little spot, but I just, the way it's kind of open there, I just went ahead and welded it. And it ain't pretty, but I'll clean it up as best I can and that's what we got. I'm gonna call it done enough. It's not bad. My welding was better. I would probably have less cleaning to do, but that's what we got. And I'll go on from here. Alright, so I got down here to look at the bottom of this frame, see about maybe spritzing some paint on it. And then I saw where somebody got crazy with the torsion bar adjustment, it looks like. Which ended up notching its way through the frame. And then I looked over there just to check, and you can see that one's the same way. So what I'm going to do here is come clean this up with a grinder. I'm not going to cut that chunk of frame out. I don't see how that makes anything any stronger. I am going to grind all around it and patch with a small piece of plate, not real plate, but say 14 gauge steel over it, and then retie it back to itself. So that's the plan there. And here's where we ended up on the other side. You can kind of see the patch right there. Tack welds. They don't show up so good with yeah, so not tack welds, but they're actually plug welds. So you have plug weld there. That is where it attaches to a little piece of frame underneath. And then there's a second plug weld just below that one. That kind of big piece of weld right there at the bottom. That is where I end up chasing steel from melting through. But we're patched up to here. Patch panel. This is how it was from the factory, this little kick out right here. I did go ahead and just tack it right there. Just seemed better to me. I did not want to get into here and get into grinding too much around the actual suspension support. And then, I mean, all in all, it looks pretty decent. So. And then painted it to pretty much match the other side. This has that really old undercoating on it, and as I stated before, I was not inclined to remove it, so went through and cleaned up frame, did it, you can kind of see their lines there. That's where that undercoating went on. And then this kind of showed some white left to it, but either way, it looks better than say that area, which I've got to work on this. The engine and transmission will go back in before I start on this, but I am going to get after these two spots in the frame just to stiffen them back up. I put polyurethane bump stops in it. Those are tightened down on both sides. Those are ready to go. Fixing to start. I guess the next thing before actually putting the engine in that's going to get done is brakes, because it's going to be more difficult to work on the brakes with the engine in the car if I've got to go in here and do anything. If I end up having to run a brake line all the way to the back, at least the transmission and stuff will be out of the way. So I'll at least get the brakes semi-functional. It does look like I'm going to have to make a line. This is not blown out yet. I don't know how. It is rusted right there pretty good. But when you try and twist this fitting, it just tries to twist the whole line, so this little piece is going to have to get remade. It shouldn't be difficult, or I guess I could buy one, but just making one probably easier. And that's this one right here, so you can see it doesn't go very far, just to there on the other side of the frame. Other than that, that's kind of where it's headed next. But as I said before, this car is full of surprises, and this little thing with the torsion bar adjustment, hammering the frame from some previous poor adjustment on the torsion bars. You can see it down there. I didn't see it until I was laying under it. So I'm just gonna, like I said, put Put a little angled piece of steel there. I'm not going to cut it out and patch something in. That seems less strong, so I will grind the area, clean it up, and weld it. And I went through and cleaned up this trash. That was that area that was kind of just eat up by the...
All right, so that's the whole of episode 6. At the very last of that video, funny fact, not really funny, but just so you can kind of understand, I was having trouble explaining what I was doing because I suffer from what are called migraines with aura, and I was trying to explain what I was doing, but hadn't fully realized that I had a migraine with aura coming on. And mine, when I have those, it impairs my speech. So if I sound like I wasn't speaking very clearly, or if I might have been inebriated, that's kind of why, because I had a migraine coming on and wasn't aware of it until a little bit later. And then it was the fact that I couldn't come up with the word lower control arm, and that told me, okay, yeah, probably fixing to have a migraine. But man, hope you enjoyed episode 6 and episode 7. We're moving along. It's a long one, I know. The video has definitely gotten better, like I said it would, and the audio's gotten better. But hey, hope to see you back next week for episode 7.